is Susan Kraft, and this is Talk Art, a program funded by the Society of Local Artists, also known as SOLA. SOLA meets once a month, usually in the Palo Alto area. You can find out how to join SOLA by going to our website, svlocalartists.org. Today, we're going to talk with a voice artist, Fonta Hadley. And that's right, a voice artist. I met her in a very modern way through the web. Fonta teaches the speaking voice and communication, which, by its very nature, is very, very customized. I sought her out because, well, I like to talk, but I found I've tired myself out with vocal fatigue and vocal strain. And those are words from her, vocal fatigue. So, and this is right up her alley. So, Fonta, how did you develop this profession? I couldn't find anyone else that did quite what you do.
Well, there aren't that many people that do exactly what I do. But you know how you begin someplace and then you kind of make it your own. There are a lot of voice and speech teachers, and they primarily work with actors. This type of work is a little bit different than speech therapy. Speech therapy deals with pathology, where voice and speech teachers aren't really dealing with pathology as much. We're more interested in someone's expressivity, or taking the whole person a little bit more into consideration and what their aspirations are and what their goals are. So I trained as an actor, and I got my undergraduate degree as a singer. So it's not so far off the mark that I came to this profession. But I studied. I had some back trouble, and I went to see an Alexander technique teacher. And Alexander, FM Alexander, was an actor who lost his voice. And you know about this work.
I didn't know that he lost his voice, though. We have an Alexander coach or teacher, I think one or two of them here. I see them advertised in the paper now and then.
Yes, it's really amazing
work.
Where
I see the advertisements where they're the body posture. They do stand like this, and this is how you should stand, and we can help you and come for free. They actually give free workshops.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. I don't know if it's just the first couple are free and then they hook you. I don't know.
Well, it takes a long time. It definitely.
So they went out there now.
Exactly. Can I get in on those?
Yeah.
So I started working with this an Alexander technique teacher, and he started to do some voice work with me. And because I had been trained, in speaking and singing, he said, you should be a voice teacher. And I remembered it from drama school. I was like, well, what, am I going to work in drama school? He said, well, check it out. But you can't get this degree in the States. You can get a performance degree in the States, but not a teaching degree. And I wanted to get a teaching degree. So I had to go to London.
Oh.
The Central School of Speech in London. The Central School of Speech and Drama in London.
Okay.
And they have a teaching master's there. So it's kind of a long story, but that's how
teaching master's is a program, or the person who teaches is a master?
It's a master. Well, both. Well, both. They are quite masterful. It's a pedagogical program. So you're learning about teaching, and my teaching degree is with a special emphasis in voice. It's all in voice.
Well, I just had never met anybody like you. I thought that I'd have to go to somebody who teaches like Toastmasters kind of speaking, or for acting. In fact, that's what I did find around anywhere around the Bay Area was that style, and so it was really unusual. Plus, you had a really good. You did have yourself placed really well on the web. So I don't know where you learned that, or it was some other part of your life taught you how to get across. She was at the first on the list, and she had a little side Google ad, and it was really good. And your website's very pretty and very specific and very stylized. So you live in San Francisco.
I do.
In the Haight area. Haight, yeah. And you've lived there for how long?
We've been there for about, gosh, I think I've been there about 7 years now.
Yeah.
7 years.
And you came here from London?
No, in the middle of that, we moved to go to London. We lived in London for about a year and a half.
Okay, so your husband went with you to London?
Yes, we packed up the whole house, bless him, and off we trekked to London.
And you were in LA before that?
Yes, and I was in LA, and then I was in New York before that, and I was in Paris, and Portugal, and
Portugal.
I did a lot of
traveling. What were you doing in Portugal?
I got certified in massage, if you can believe it. I know, I never, everyone has a diverse little path, and mine took me to Portugal to study massage, which I never practiced. But
well, it's a good reason to go.
It was a reason to go to Portugal.
Okay.
So off I went.
So Well, you find something you want to do. You find an interesting area in the world that teaches you, and then you go there. Okay.
Well, yeah, most of the choices I've made have been based around, you know, travel. If I can go somewhere and learn something and travel.
Oh, that's why San Francisco for 7 years is unusual. Well, see, one of the things I think about San Francisco is it's like a spot on the globe, and the globe just moves underneath it because people come from all over the world and come here. So you don't have to really travel to see and meet new people because they're always coming here. But let's go back to the art of speaking and the art of now, I took a couple of classes, and so I'm in the middle of training, early part of training. And I've taken a hiatus. Actually, I have to be truthful. I've been taking a hiatus for months. I got super busy, and I just couldn't come up there once. So I guess just how often am I supposed to come up there? Once a month, once a week?
I generally train once a week for a period of time. The introductory program is about 8 weeks. And I ask for people to come at least for the first month so we can gain a little bit of momentum.
So you did something really interesting with me. Well, I suppose you do this with all your clients or your students. But you had me do a couple of things like, they're almost meditative things where I had to say the letter Z for a very, very long time till I ran out of breath. And I thought, gee, I think I just did that in the Masonic Hall with one of these great gurus of the world. And the whole hall did this buzzing noise like it's a bee.
That must have been amazing.
It was really cool.
The vibration from that must have been incredible.
It was. And so then it happened with you like a week later. So I was really surprised, like, okay, all right, this is really interesting. But then you had me, I think, was I on all fours, breathing in and out? And I thought this is more yoga thing. So all the way in and all the way out.
Well, you can't separate the voice from the body. And people forget that. I think that they think that their voices are just a function of their brains.
Well, it's the talking head.
Yeah, exactly.
But no.
And you can always tell when someone's, you know, just talking from their brain and their body is not incorporated in any way, shape, or form. There's no connectivity to it. And that's a specific type of style, and we call it the bobblehead or the talking head.
The talking head.
And so we need to get people connected with their bodies, because if you're connected with your body, then your voice is going to be much more authentic.
And you can breathe, and you can talk from down here rather than up here, which is why I'm straining and fatiguing my throat, because I talk just from here up.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something else I've heard recently, and I've actually believed this for quite a long time. I was in academics for a very, very long time, and recently I heard somebody give a very great speech on TED.com. I spoke with you about that earlier. I think a lot of people know about TED.com these days. And he talked about how we train people in our schools from kindergarten all the way through until they drop off. But the idea is to keep them going in school. The goal is to continue on to the next level, always. And if you drop off, that's kind of like, well, I had to stop. And so what we're trying to do is train people to be professors. And a professor is somebody who walks around to let their left hemisphere talk or write. But everything, so the whole body is just to transport the left hemisphere, and that's it, which is not a really whole way, a whole life, a whole, what am I trying to say? Whole body or whole existence. Yeah. So, so this fits in with a lot of cultural ideas that are changing, at least on the fringes or of some part of the people that think about such different ideas about how to live. I think so. I think it's really relevant now. I think it's really prevalent now because of Obama. Yes. So I think people are thinking a lot about how they're saying something, whereas I think most people probably are more concerned initially with what they're saying instead of how they're saying it. And I think Obama has brought up the issue of how you say it, because he's so good at it. You know, regardless of how you feel politically, or if you watch the man speak, you will feel something from him, and that's what you hope when you speak, to have someone feel something, to react, in some way, have a feeling, one way or the other. One way or the other. If you have a reaction, you just don't want people to nod off or to walk away. There's nothing worse. To walk away and say, "Okay, then," and walk away. Yes. Like, oh, wait a minute. There's nothing worse than speaking, which is essentially sharing, and someone, you know, disengaging from that. Now, it's awful. You told me that one of the ways that people make this happen, and they don't mean to, is they write something down. Yes. And they write it down, and they practice reading this one thing, and they try to memorize it. So then they're out there and they're speaking and they're memorizing and they're reciting something. And unless they're a very, very, very well-trained actor, they're not going to do it. They're not going to pull it off. And people are going to know it's a reciting piece, and it's not even, maybe not even that well written. It's not Shakespeare.
Yes.
So you said, tell me.
Well,
So
I think that people, the way that people prepare for speaking, it needs to be very different than the way that you would prepare for anything written. So the writing process and the speaking process, I think, are fundamentally different. If you're writing something, it's generally done in an isolated place. You're by yourself. It's a distillation process. You have some ideas that then are distilled, that then are distilled, that then are distilled, and you end up with a very condensed bit of information, very, very condensed, concise bit of information. That process is not really relevant for speaking, because in speaking you are responding to all kinds of stimuli that are both inside of you, externally, the needs of the environment that you're speaking in, the people that you're speaking to. All of this stimuli needs to have some response from the person that's speaking, and so that process is very different than working by oneself to create something very condensed. So when I'm working with people that are new to presenting, a lot of people come to me because they are terrified of speaking in front of other people, or they have a job which is now requiring them, in order to go up the ladder, you have to learn how to speak in front of other people, that you have to learn how to lead, and to speak is to lead. So they're not familiar with the process of how to prepare for speaking. And I think for people that are not performance-oriented, it's a new process for them to speak in order to prepare to speak. So in order to get your notes, your speaking notes, you would begin speaking. You would stand in your living room, and you would begin speaking about whatever topic it was that you were going to address. And after maybe 5 times of talking about that particular topic, you would then take a note. And then you get your notes that way. Because what that does is that it gets you in a position where you're able to you're able to gain some confidence about being able to address the topic in many different ways, right? When you're standing up and you're speaking, different things are going to come into your head each time, even when you're practicing by yourself. So you'll have maybe, 5 or 6 different ways to say the same thing, essentially, which is going to give you a whole different level of confidence, because when you stand up to speak in front of people, you can then feel confident to respond to the needs of that environment, of the listener, of the impulses inside of you, and have tools to do that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And what brings to mind is somebody who has something memorized, and if they get off script, then they've got the second conversation. They have the second conversation in their head, and they're still trying to speak. Like that poor young woman in that beauty contest. She's very well educated, well poised normally, and she said something that was off script, and then she just blathered and said the most ridiculous things. And she was the most viewed YouTube, 30-second piece in the world for a week or two. And it was horribly embarrassing for her, and we all had a great fun watching it, and could be, look at her, she's, I can't believe it, what a bubblehead. Yeah, and then I saw her on some talk show where she was sitting there comfortably in jeans and a t-shirt, and she was a very eloquent speaker, and she was very, very well educated. You could tell she had a lot of information that she knew, and she was an extremely smart person, but she looked like an idiot.
I think it's because the writing distillation process gets you very attached to speaking in a very concise. It's like end gaining, right? You're trying to get to the end gaining. It's an Alexander term. It means that you're ahead of yourself, and it means that you're trying to get the bottom process without going through any other process. So if you have already done a distillation process and you've written it all out, then you are expecting that your body will be able to communicate that through a process. Writing is a mind process. Speaking is a body process.
So another thing that happens, I would guess, tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, when you are doing this in the style that everyone is more familiar with, which is writing it many times, distilling it down, and they're going by script, people will have nervous habits, so they're doing something funny with their hands or their feet, or they'll do some sort of weird nervous habit because their body's disconnected from their head. I think what you told me was I had something. You asked me if I did anything, and I said no. And then we continued on, and I got a little anxious about it because I was on the spot, not on the spot, but I was testing myself. You and I were the only one in the room. but I felt my foot rising. I went, what the heck's going on? And so I mentioned it to you. I said, yes, I do have a habit. My foot goes up and down.
Yeah.
When I'm uptight, when I'm speaking about something. You said, aha, your foot is trying to get attention because you're disconnected from your lower half of your body.
Yes.
Just your upper half is together on this. And I thought, you know, you're absolutely right. And I didn't finish taking classes. I need to come back. So I don't remember what the answer was, but I do know that there's a solution if I continue on. So was that
I think the body will call attention to parts. I think that the body would like to be involved. I think we inherently would like to be expressed. I think everyone would like to feel expressed. And when there are parts of the body which are not being involved in that process, I think they do call your attention to them. Either by being stiff or by being agitated. It does call attention. And I think when people inhibit that, then it causes more attention to be drawn.
Well, you know, this goes back to the idea of we're a whole body organism.
Yes.
So our cells, their cellular communication is very clear now that there's cellular communication. There's all sorts of weird quantum sort of style, not quantum literally, but quantum style communication between individuals from cellular communication. Yeah. We have white blood cells and red blood cells that run around the entire course of the body. So in nerves, actually, they send pulses back and forth. Obviously, that's how we move and how we stay alive. So why would we think, why do we still believe that our left hemisphere is the only thing that's important?
Well, I think we're trained that way. I mean,
because we all want to be professors. Because that's the way our school goes.
That's your education system.
Well, that's
right.
It,
so your education system, you're always evaluated on a written basis.
That's right.
So you are asked each time that you are to be evaluated to write something.
Even as a speaker, right? Would you,
yeah.
would you say that speakers are evaluated with written form rather than as a speaker? What happened in your class when you took your when you got your degree?
I know.
How did they test you?
It's so completely ironic. So I'm getting a master's degree in voice. Yeah. And I have to write a dissertation.
That's ludicrous.
Yes.
Did you have to give a I can't even speak. Did you have to give a performance at all, or did you stand up and speak about anything?
No.
Did you even defend your thesis?
No, that's more of a PhD. With a master's, you write a dissertation and it's then evaluated, not in your presence, and you don't have to defend it. But a PhD, you do. And I think it would be really interesting for them to integrate some of that so that you actually have to speak instead of write. So yeah, isn't that ironic?
Very ironic. Very ironic. Wow. Okay.
So I think we're trained that way. I think we're absolutely trained to live in that place in our brains. We're very brain-oriented, content-driven. I think that's the way our society is set up.
So I want to go back a little bit to back to your education, but before your education, before you traveled to Portugal for your masseuse training, and now part of this being able to move around the world so easily and do and go where you wanted to, thinking that, well, I can do what I want because I can't. Why not? What would stop me from doing what I want to do if I think it's a good idea? Now you were raised in a slightly, no, I shouldn't say slightly, in a very different style than most of the people that I've met.
Yeah.
And that would be communes were involved.
Yes.
And your parents were living off the grid. There's a great movie called Off the Grid. Have you ever watched that movie? Off the Grid?
No, I don't think I have.
It's a wonderful movie. Well, I don't want to advertise that.
It sounds so familiar to me, though. I'm like, yes, I think that was about my life.
People would, and it's the young woman single girl actually. She grew up and she wrote this story and became a movie. Living off the grid, being raised off the grid like you were, and. Tell our audience where you spent the first year of your life.
Susan loves this story.
I do.
I was born in we were living in a commune at the time. My parents were living in a commune, and it was this beautiful place. I was born in Kauai, and it was this beautiful place called the Valley of the Rainbows, and it's 200 acres, and it has 3 waterfalls. And my parents were hippies, and I was born
hippies. She lives in San Francisco now, so
yay, power to the
comes back home. She comes back to nest.
And I was born in a garage.
Haight-Ashbury. Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was born in a garage.
In a garage.
And then we moved from the garage on this palatial estate to a tree house.
Tree house. A big one.
Big one. A big one.
Big tree house. And so you spent your formative years of learning how to walk.
And in a tree.
In a tree house. So I don't think they really cared too much about the car seats, that you're keeping the child safe.
No,
but
I think we had sandbags and a VW, you know.
Sandbags?
Yeah, I don't think there were actually seats involved. I'm not quite sure.
You
I
sat
don't
on
remember that.
sandbags inside the VW bus?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that was
All right.
what my father told me. I don't remember back that far, but yeah.
Well, you know, it was a different time.
It was a different time, and what it did give me, I think, and I feel very fortunate to have it, is that my parents really cultivated in all of us. I think they created very capable people because there was a lot of creative stimulus, and that was always encouraged in us. We were never told we couldn't do something, and I think that's a pretty big gift to give somebody.
That's a wonderful gift.
It enabled to help someone feel that they are capable in life, and to be non-judgmental of that creative stimulus, whatever that is for that person.
Now, your father taught art. Eventually, went back on the
Both
grid.
of my parents
Came back in and started to get a salary, and that was through schools. They were teaching art, so that was obviously very creative. And your siblings, are they also in creative lines of work?
We all have some kind of creative outlet, and I think creativity doesn't always necessarily need to be in an art form. I think that, and the more that I work with people of, in my private practice, I work with people of all sorts. Anybody can come to me and work with their voice. And it's interesting how problem solving is such a creative thing, right? If you can allow that to come out, and the ideas that you have, really amazing things can come out of that.
Which is what this group that I'm kind of holding court with, SOLA. It's about people who are artists, and some of them are all different kinds of art.
Yeah.
And it's what I find really interesting is that right here. So this is in Palo Alto. Where this is being filmed is in Palo Alto, and it's in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we have some of the most creative people here. But look what we've done here. This is a very creative, high-tech, high-money, big impact on the rest of the world, and it comes out of creativity. It doesn't come out of grinding through the same formula over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. New ideas.
New ideas.
I think it's about following the impulse and not judging that impulse. And that has great relevance for speech.
Aha.
Because it's really important to be able to go with that. Because again, if you're responding to all of the stimuli that is generated both in yourself and externally, the most live, engaging speakers are the people that do not judge that impulse. They're the ones that go with whatever flow.
So when you talked about Obama earlier, when obviously he's a great speaker, and he's people who even if people didn't want to vote for him, they still admired his speaking ability.
He's engaging.
He's engaging. So now, but he has to have some sort of, and I know you don't know him personally, but somebody like him, let's just say somebody like him, I don't want to stay on him too much, but when people are speaking like that in public and they've got high stakes at risk, they have to have some sort of a recipe to go through.
Well, I think he has done it a lot. I think he has some natural abilities. Again, I don't know, I haven't worked with him, but he has very natural abilities, and I think that he, whether it's conscious or unconscious, honesty is on the forefront of his communication.
So judging the crowd and the energy of the crowd, but also has to reach out to people he can't see. It's got to be just the hum of the whole nation, because otherwise it would just reach that one audience, and whoever that group is, whether they're single mothers or factory workers or whatever, right?
But people recognize authenticity. You always know when someone's being genuine with you, even if you don't get any other kind of reading on it. You know whether they're being authentic. And authenticity cannot be thought, but presence can be thought. So you can teach someone how to be more present and how to be quiet and calm in that presence.
So back to teaching. So after you evaluated me, it took one day for me to be there, and you had me do these different things. And then the next time I came back, you gave me, was that the next time you gave me five sheets of paper that had five different areas that you evaluated me on. So it was, I was not overwhelmed, but I was blown away by how much information was there. I just didn't realize. And I did pretty well, actually. I was pretty surprised.
That's right, girl.
So one of the fun things, though, and it was embarrassing. I wanted to do this for my husband, Carl. You told me that I had a very high, really large range. I don't use it all, and I top up. You said I top up. I don't go all the way down with my breath. You told me you'll never run out of breath. Your body won't let you. Keep talking until you're done. So don't breathe in for every comma or period. Isn't that interesting? Don't breathe at your comma and period when you're reading a piece or even when you're just speaking.
Or it's up to you whether you do or not. But in voice is such a habitual instrument, right? You learned how to speak when you were 1, let's just say. Yeah. So you have a period of time, a good period of time to get some pretty indelible
decades for some of us, multiple decades. But one of the things
indelible habits. So I'm addressing habits with you. Right?
Right.
We're looking at the habits
and the range. What I was surprised at was, because I never thought I could sing anything other than in the car or in the shower. I'm not a shower singer, but in the car, I'm a big car singer. Or I sing to my dogs sometimes. If there's nobody else in the house, I sing to them all the time. But you said that I have a really big range.
Yes.
And so I did this all the way up to all the way down, and you said, wow, it's a really big range. And so I wanted to show my husband what my range was. And I couldn't do it. I just like,
use your hand. It helps.
I couldn't
Again,
do it.
the
I
body,
just couldn't
if you
do
get
it.
the body involved.
So I'm thinking that maybe that's one of the things I have to do in order to kind of break free of my limiting range. But anyway, so I think that your website, hopefully your website has gone up on the screen a few times, because I would love to have people have the opportunity to come visit you and experience this incredible different style of learning how to interact with your body and your voice, your very important communication ability to reach out to anyone in your life.
Yeah, I think it's an important time for communication.
Oh, it looks like our song came up, so I want to thank you so much for coming down here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's wonderful meeting you and lovely talking to you. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you.